last door in room 312. It started with a night shift I almost didn't take. Back in 2018, I worked as a security guard at a small roadside motel just outside Reno, Nevada. It wasn't one of those big chain hotels, just a long 2-story building with flickering neon lights and a parking lot that always felt a little too quiet after midnight. Most nights were boring. Drunk guests, late check-ins, the occasional argument, but nothing that ever made me feel scared. Until room 312. The motel manager, Carl, warned me about the room during my first week. He didn't explain much, just said something strange happened there years ago. A guest had checked in and never checked out. When housekeeping finally opened the door, the room was empty. No luggage. No signs of struggle. But the bathroom mirror had a message written on it. Not with lipstick. Not with marker. With something darker. Something that had already dried. I laughed it off at the time. Every old motel had creepy stories. But Carl had one rule. Room 312 stayed locked. Always. No guests. No cleaning. No maintenance. Just a door at the end of the hallway that nobody touched. For months, I barely thought about it. Until one stormy night in October. The power went out across half the property. That meant one thing. I had to check every hallway manually. The upstairs corridor was silent except for the sound of rain hitting the windows. Room 301. Normal. Room 304. Quiet. Room 308. Nothing unusual. Then I reached the end of the hall. Room 312. And that's when I noticed something that made my stomach tighten. The door was open. Just a few inches. At first I thought housekeeping had made a mistake. But that didn't make sense. Nobody cleaned that room. Ever. I pushed the door slowly. The hinges creaked like they hadn't moved in years. The room smelled strange. Not rotten. Not moldy. Just old. Like air that had been trapped too long. The bed was made. Dust covered the nightstand. And the bathroom light was on. That was impossible. The power had just gone out. Which meant that light shouldn't have been working. Still, I walked toward the bathroom. I don't know why. Maybe curiosity. Maybe stupidity. But the closer I got, the colder the air felt. Like stepping into a freezer. My breath started to fog. And then I saw the mirror. The message Carl mentioned. Still there. Still dark. Still readable. It said 3 words. He is still here. Right under the message was a handprint. Small. Too small to be mine. And definitely not Carl's. But that wasn't the part that scared me. The part that made my heart slam in my chest was the sound behind me. A slow creak. Like someone shifting their weight on the bed. I turned around instantly. The bed was empty. Exactly the way I'd seen it before. But the mattress was no longer flat. It looked like someone had just gotten up. I backed toward the door, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Old springs. Loose frame. Anything. Then the bathroom door slammed shut behind me. Hard. I ran. No hesitation. No second thought. I sprinted down the hallway, down the stairs, and straight into the office. Carl was sitting behind the desk drinking coffee like nothing had happened. I told him everything. Every detail. He listened without interrupting. Then he sighed. Like he had heard it before. Then he said something that still haunts me. Something I wish he had never told me. He said, "You saw the mirror, didn't you?" I nodded. Carl leaned forward slowly. Then he said, "That message wasn't written after the guest disappeared. It was written before he checked in." The room went silent. My brain struggled to process that. "Before?" I asked. Carl nodded. Then he told me the truth about room 312. 20 years ago, a man had checked into the motel during a snowstorm. He stayed one night. The next morning, he was gone. But the bathroom mirror already had the message. He is still here. Nobody knew what it meant. Until a week later. Police came looking for the man. Apparently, he had called 911 from the motel room at 2:13 a.m. The operator asked what was wrong. The man whispered something. Something so disturbing the operator wrote it down word for word. Carl showed me the report once. I wish he hadn't. Because the man's final words were this: "There's someone in my room." But he looks exactly like me. After that night, strange things started happening. Guests in nearby rooms heard footsteps. Whispers. Doors opening. But nobody was there. Eventually, the owner locked room 312 forever. Or at least, he tried to, because 3 different night guards before me had reported the same thing. The door opening, the light turning on, and the message appearing again in the mirror. But Carl's voice dropped when he told me the worst part. The message changes sometimes. A chill ran through my body. What do you mean, changes? Carl looked toward the dark hallway behind the office. Then he said quietly, sometimes it says, he found you. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next. 2 days later I quit that job. But before I left, I went upstairs one last time. I don't know why. Maybe curiosity again. Maybe I wanted proof. The hallway was empty. Room 312 was closed. Locked. Exactly the way it should be. But as I turned to leave, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The hallway mirror across from the room. And in that reflection, room 312's door was slowly opening. And standing inside the doorway was someone wearing my uniform, looking straight at me, smiling. I froze in the hallway. For a moment, my brain refused to understand what I was seeing, because the real hallway behind me was completely empty. Room 312's door was still shut, locked, exactly the way it had been seconds earlier. But in the hallway mirror across from it, the door was slowly opening, and someone was standing inside. Someone wearing my uniform. Someone smiling. I stepped closer to the mirror. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. Every step felt wrong, like my body was warning me not to get any closer. But curiosity pulled me forward. When I stood directly in front of the mirror, the reflection became clearer. The man inside room 312 stepped forward, still smiling, still wearing my uniform, my name badge, my jacket, everything. The only difference was his eyes. They were completely black. I spun around instantly. The real hallway was still empty. Room 312's door was still closed. No movement. No sound. Nothing. My breathing was shaky now. I told myself it had to be stress. Sleep deprivation. My brain playing tricks. But when I looked back at the mirror again, the reflection was gone. The door in the mirror was closed again. Just like the real one. That should have been the end of it. I should have walked away. Left the building. Quit right then and there. But something kept pulling my attention back to the door. Like a magnet. And that's when I heard it. 3 slow knocks. From inside room 312. My stomach dropped. Nobody had a key to that room except Carl. And Carl was downstairs. I backed away slowly. But the knocking came again. 3 times. Slow. Heavy. Like someone tapping the door with their knuckles. Then a voice spoke. Soft. Quiet. But perfectly clear. My shift isn't over yet. My blood turned to ice. Because the voice sounded exactly like mine. I ran downstairs again, nearly tripping over the stairs. Carl looked up when I burst into the office. I must have looked terrified because he didn't even ask questions at first. He just handed me a glass of water. When I finally explained what happened, Carl went silent. Completely silent. Then he stood up, walked to the office drawer, and pulled out a key. Old. Rusty. Heavy. The key to room 312. We need to check something, Carl said. I didn't want to. Not even a little. But for some reason I followed him upstairs. The hallway felt colder than before. The air heavy. Room 312 sat at the end like it was waiting for us. Carl stopped in front of the door. Then he looked at me. You said it knocked. I nodded. He hesitated. Then unlocked the door. The door creaked open. The room looked exactly like before. Dusty. Quiet. Empty. But the bathroom light was on again. Carl noticed it too. He walked slowly toward the bathroom. I stayed near the door. Because something felt wrong. Really wrong. Then Carl stepped inside the bathroom. And went completely still. What is it? I asked. Carl didn't answer. He just slowly stepped back into the room. His face had gone pale. Like he'd seen a ghost. Look, he said quietly. I walked into the bathroom. And saw the mirror. The message had changed. The old words were gone. Now there was something new written across the glass. 4 words. Only one can leave. A loud slam echoed behind us. The bedroom door had just shut. Hard. Carl rushed to open it. but the handle wouldn't move. The door was stuck, locked from the outside. We were trapped inside room 312. Then we heard footsteps. In the hallway. Slow. Heavy. Coming toward the door. Carl and I stared at each other. Neither of us moved. The footsteps stopped right outside. Then the door handle slowly turned. But the door didn't open. Instead, someone knocked. 3 slow knocks. Exactly the same way I heard before. Then the voice came again. From the other side. My shift isn't over yet. Carl whispered something under his breath. What? I asked. He looked at me with wide eyes. That's the voice the guest reported on the 911 call. My chest tightened, because the voice outside the door still sounded exactly like mine. The knocking stopped. The hallway went silent again. Carl finally forced the door open with his shoulder. We ran into the hallway, but there was nobody there. No footsteps. No movement. Nothing. Just the mirror across from room 312. And this time, the reflection made my heart stop. Because in the mirror, Carl was standing beside me. But I wasn't alone. There was another version of me, standing behind us, smiling. I turned around instantly. Nothing was there. The hallway was empty. But when I looked back at the mirror, the second version of me was gone. Carl grabbed my arm. "We are leaving," he said. We didn't even bother locking the room again. We went straight downstairs, straight out of the building, and neither of us said a word. I quit the next morning. Carl sold the motel 6 months later. And as far as I know, room 312 is still there. Still locked. Still empty. But last year something happened that made my blood run cold again. I was scrolling through local news online when I saw an article about a renovated motel reopening outside Reno. New owners, new management, new rooms. But one sentence caught my attention. The article said the motel now had 311 rooms, not 312. Room 312 no longer existed. They removed it during renovations, completely sealed it behind a wall. But the last line of the article was what really terrified me, because one of the construction workers reported hearing knocking inside the wall. 3 slow knocks, and a voice whispering from the other side. My shift isn't over yet. Please like and subscribe now, because next story is very horror. The last passenger on Route 66. In 2019, I worked the night shift for a small bus company that ran long-distance routes across the Southwest. Most of the routes were quiet. Just tired travelers, truckers, and the occasional college student trying to get home cheaply. But one route had a reputation among drivers. The 2:10 a.m. Route 66 run from Flagstaff to Albuquerque. Drivers called it the empty route, because almost nobody ever rode it, except sometimes. Someone did. The first time I drove that route, dispatch warned me about something strange. They said the GPS sometimes glitched near the Arizona-New Mexico border. Phones lost signal. The radio would turn to static. Normal desert stuff. But then the dispatcher added something odd. If someone waves you down near mile marker 201. He paused, then finished the sentence quietly. Don't stop. I laughed when he said that. I thought it was just an old driver joke. But the way he looked at me before I left made it feel like he wasn't joking. The route started normally. 3 passengers boarded in Flagstaff. A woman traveling to Gallup. A college kid with headphones heading to Albuquerque. And an older man who got off halfway in Holbrook. By 1:50 a.m., the bus was almost empty. Just me, the woman in the back, and the college kid sleeping across 2 seats. The desert outside was completely black. No houses. No lights. Just endless highway. Around 2:05 a.m., the radio started acting weird. Static. Then silence. Then static again. My GPS screen flickered once. Then corrected itself. I didn't think much of it, until I saw someone standing on the side of the road, right next to a sign. Mile marker 201. My stomach tightened immediately. The figure was waving slowly. Not aggressively. Just a calm motion. Like someone trying to catch a ride. At first I kept driving. Then I slowed down. Because something about the person felt wrong. Not dangerous. Just wrong. The figure was standing perfectly still except for the arm waving. No shifting. No stepping forward. Just standing there. Like a mannequin. As the bus headlights got closer, I finally saw the person clearly. It was a woman. Mid-30s maybe. Long dark hair. Wearing what looked like an old grey coat. But the strangest part was her face. She wasn't looking at the bus. She was looking straight ahead. At the road. Even while waving. Every instinct told me to keep driving. But I didn't. Because the company policy was simple. If someone signals the bus, you stop. So I pulled over. The bus door hissed open. The woman slowly walked up the steps. Without saying a word. Then she sat down directly behind my seat. Ticket? I asked. No answer. I looked in the mirror above the windshield. She was staring straight forward. Not blinking. Not moving. I said again. Then she finally spoke. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I already paid. Something about the way she said it made the air feel colder. But I shrugged it off. People on night buses can be weird. I closed the door. And started driving again. About 5 minutes later, the woman in the back of the bus walked up to me. She looked nervous. Driver, she whispered. Yes. There's someone sitting behind you. I nodded. I know. But she shook her head. No, there isn't. A chill ran through me. I slowly looked in the mirror again. The seat behind me was empty. Completely empty. My chest tightened. Because I hadn't seen the woman get up. Hadn't heard footsteps. Hadn't heard the door. Nothing. The bus was moving at 70 miles per hour. There was nowhere she could have gone. I stood up and checked the aisle. Empty. The bathroom. Empty. Every seat. Empty. Except the college kid still sleeping. I returned to the driver's seat slowly, trying to convince myself she had moved somewhere I missed. But the woman from the back looked pale now. Driver, she whispered again. What? I asked. Her voice shook. She's outside. My stomach dropped. I looked at the window beside the driver's seat and nearly crashed the bus. Because running beside the bus, keeping perfect pace, was the woman I had just picked up. Her hair was whipping in the wind. Her coat flapping violently. But her face was completely calm. And she was still staring straight ahead. Not at me. Not at the passengers. Just the road. The same way she had been standing earlier. Then slowly, her head turned. And she looked directly at me. And smiled. I slammed the gas pedal. The bus surged forward. 85 miles per hour. But she stayed beside us. Perfectly matching the speed. Running like it was nothing. Then she spoke. But her voice didn't come from outside. It came from inside the bus speakers. The broken radio crackled. And her whisper filled the cabin. You weren't supposed to stop. The college kid finally woke up. Why is someone talking on the speakers? He asked. But before I could answer, the bus lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then went completely dark. For 3 seconds. When the lights came back on, everyone screamed. Because the woman was now sitting behind me again. Exactly where she had been before. Perfectly still. Perfectly silent. The woman in the back started crying. The college kid grabbed his bag. And I kept driving. Faster than I should have. Desperate to reach the next town. 30 minutes later we arrived in Gallup. The woman who had been crying ran off the bus immediately. The college kid followed her. Neither of them looked back. I turned around slowly. The seat behind me was empty again. No woman. No coat. No footsteps leaving. Nothing. I reported everything to dispatch. They didn't sound surprised. The dispatcher just sighed. Then said something that chilled me. You stopped at mile marker 201, didn't you? I didn't answer. Because I already knew the truth. Then he told me the story drivers whisper about. 10 years earlier, a woman had been hit by a bus near mile marker 201. The driver never saw her in time. She died instantly. But witnesses said something strange. They said the woman had been standing in the road, waving at cars. 4 hours. Not moving. Not stepping aside. Just waiting. After that accident, drivers started reporting strange things. A woman waving beside the road. A passenger appearing on the bus. Footsteps in empty aisles. And sometimes, something running beside the vehicle, matching its speed. But the creepiest detail came from security cameras. Because one night, a depot camera caught a bus arriving from Route 66. The door opened. Passengers stepped off. Then the driver stepped off. But one more person exited last. A woman in a grey coat. The strange thing? The driver insisted he never picked up a woman that night. And the passenger list showed only 3 people. But the security footage clearly showed 4. Dispatch saved the video. 4 years. Until something even worse happened. Because a week later, the same driver disappeared. His bus was found parked beside mile marker 201. Engine running. Door open. Completely empty. But the GPS log showed one last stop recorded. Right on the highway. Exactly where the woman always stands. Waiting. And ever since then, drivers on the 2:10 a.m. route still report seeing her. Standing beside the road. Waving slowly. Waiting for someone else to stop. The rest stopped that wasn't there. I've been driving long haul for 14 years, and there's one rule every trucker learns fast. If you're tired, you pull over. Fatigue kills quicker than ice or bad brakes. That night I'd been hauling electronics from Phoenix to Little Rock, pushing hard to make delivery by morning. Around 3:08 a.m., somewhere east of Albuquerque, my eyelids felt like sandpaper. I needed coffee. A restroom. 10 minutes to breathe. That's when I saw the sign. Rest area. 1 mile. I didn't remember a rest area on that stretch of Interstate 40. I've driven I-40 dozens of times. Still, new construction happens. I shrugged it off. A mile later, another sign. Rest area. Open 24 hours. An arrow pointed right. Relief washed over me. My fuel gauge was fine, but my nerves were shot from too many empty miles. I took the exit ramp, tires humming against fresh-looking asphalt. The ramp curved longer than expected. Longer than it should have. At the bottom, there were no overhead lights. No sodium lamps. No glowing vending machines. Just darkness. But I could make out silhouettes. Parked vehicles scattered across a wide gravel lot. Strange thing was, none of them had lights on. No running engines. No movement. I rolled forward slowly. Every vehicle looked old. Very old. A 1970s pickup with oxidized paint. A station wagon from the early 80s. A semi with a long-nose cab design I hadn't seen in decades. Dust coated everything like it hadn't moved in years. My headlights swept across the lot. No building. No restroom structure. No picnic tables. Just vehicles. Parked facing different directions. Like they stopped randomly. I checked my GPS. It showed empty desert. No rest area. No exit. Just Interstate 40 stretching straight through. My truck was no longer on the mapped road. A chill crept up my spine. I reached for my phone. No signal. Not even emergency bars. I told myself I'd just turn around. Get back to the highway. But when I looked in my side mirror, the exit ramp was gone. Behind me was only more gravel lot fading into darkness. No on-ramp. No road. Just endless desert. My engine suddenly sputtered. Then died. Dashboard lights flickered off. Silence swallowed everything. No wind. No insects. Nothing. Then, one by one, the parked vehicle's headlights turned on. Not bright beams. Just dull yellow glows. All at once. Facing my truck. My heart started pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. Inside each vehicle, I could see silhouettes. Drivers. Perfectly still. Hands on steering wheels. Not moving. Not blinking. Just watching. Every windshield reflected pale faces. Featureless in the dark. I tried the ignition again. Nothing. The air inside my cab felt thick, harder to breathe. Then my passenger door handle moved. Slowly. Up. And down. Like someone testing it. I locked it manually. The lock clicked. Immediately. Every vehicle horn in the lot blared at once. A deafening wall of sound. I covered my ears, yelling. The horns didn't stop. They harmonized into one long, distorted tone. Then cut off instantly. Silence again. My headlights flickered. And I noticed something worse. The vehicles were closer. Much closer. They hadn't started engines. Hadn't made tire sounds. But the circle around me tightened. One car door creaked open. Then another. Then dozens. Every driver stepped out at the same time. They moved stiffly, jerking, like frames skipping in a broken film reel. All of them turned their heads toward me in perfect synchronization. Their faces were wrong. Skin gray, eyes sunken, mouths slightly open, as if mid-breath. One figure walked forward, a woman in a faded truck stop waitress uniform. Name tag unreadable. Her feet didn't disturb the gravel. She stopped in front of my grill, tilted her head, and smiled. Her jaw opened too wide. Far too wide. "You needed rest," she said softly. But her lips didn't move. The voice came from everywhere. The figures began walking toward my cab. Slow, deliberate, in perfect unison. My dashboard suddenly flickered back to life. Engine roared. Without me turning the key, the steering wheel jerked violently left, then right, as if someone else had grabbed control. The truck began rolling backward on its own. There was no driver in the seat, but the wheel was turning. The truck reversed through the tightening circle. Vehicles phased slightly out of the way, like smoke, then solidified again. The exit ramp suddenly appeared ahead, just 30 feet away. I slammed the gear into drive and floored it. The truck shot forward, up the ramp. Asphalt replaced gravel. Streetlights snapped on overhead, and I was back on Interstate 40, alone. No rest area behind me. No exit sign. Just uninterrupted highway. My clock read 3:09 a.m. 1 minute had passed, but my fuel gauge was lower, much lower, and my trailer felt heavier. I checked my mirrors. The doors to my trailer were slightly open. I pulled onto the shoulder and ran back with a flashlight. The electronics pallets were untouched, but between the rows, there were tire tracks in the dust, dozens of them, leading nowhere, and boot prints, heading toward the cab. When I climbed back into the driver's seat, there was something on my passenger seat, a small metal keychain, rusty, shaped like a motel room key tag, stamped with faded numbers, 312, and on the back, scratched deeply into the metal, rest. I threw it out the window immediately, didn't stop driving until sunrise. Later that week, I checked official state maps. There has never been a rest area on that stretch of Interstate 40. Not now. Not ever. But if you drive it around 3:08 a.m., and you see a sign offering rest, keep going. Because if you take that exit, you won't come back to the same road. And if you do, you might not be alone in your trailer. The convoy in the fog. I don't scare easy. 20 years hauling freight up and down the spine of America will do that to you. I've driven through blizzards in Wyoming, flash floods in Missouri, and winds so strong in Kansas they pushed my rig halfway into the next lane. But nothing unsettled me like that stretch of Highway 287, outside Fort Collins, Colorado. It was 1:36 a.m., and the fog rolled in without warning. Not the thin mist you see rising off rivers. This was dense, heavy, instant. 1 second the stars were visible. The next, my headlights reflected straight back into my windshield like twin suns. Visibility dropped to maybe 20 feet. I slowed to 45, hazard lights blinking. No other vehicles had been on the road for miles. Then I saw taillights ahead. 3 sets, perfectly aligned. Same distance apart. Same speed. Like they'd been waiting. Relief washed over me. A convoy meant safety. If they could see, I could follow. I eased in behind the last truck, keeping a cautious distance. Strange thing was, I couldn't read any company logos. The trailers were blank. Matte gray. No reflective tape. No DOT numbers. Just silhouettes in the fog. My CB crackled. No channel tone. Just breathing. Slow. Measured. I grabbed the MS convoy ahead. You reading me? No response. But the brake lights of all 3 trucks flashed simultaneously. Once. Then off. A signal. I didn't like it. I checked my GPS. It showed no vehicles around me. Just my truck icon alone on Highway 287. Yet the taillights remained clearly visible. The fog thickened further, pressing against the glass like smoke underwater. Then I noticed something worse. The trucks ahead weren't kicking up spray. No tire mist. No sound of rubber against wet pavement. Just silent motion. Like they were gliding. I tapped my brakes lightly. My brake lights reflected in the fog. The convoy didn't react. Didn't slow. Didn't change spacing. They moved as one unit. My CB hissed again. This time, a voice. Flat. Mechanical. Join formation. The words didn't distort with static. They sounded clear. Too clear. I felt a cold knot in my stomach. I'm good back here, I muttered. The voice repeated. Join formation. The rearmost truck began slowing. Gradually. Until it was directly beside me. I hadn't heard it move. Hadn't seen it merge. But it was there, matching my speed perfectly. The cab was older. Square body. No visible driver through the side window. Just darkness inside. Its headlights flickered once. Then the truck drifted closer, pushing me gently toward the center line. I steered right to maintain space. But there was no shoulder anymore. Just fog. No road edge visible. My heart pounded. I accelerated to break away. The convoy accelerated instantly. Perfect synchronization. The lead truck's trailer doors slowly creaked open while still moving. Inside, darkness. Endless darkness. No cargo. Just black space. The mechanical voice returned. Join formation. My headlights flickered. Just like in Amarillo months ago. The memory hit me hard. Mile marker 312. The woman in white. The whisper. You didn't look. My breath caught in my throat. The side truck's cab lights suddenly turned on. For half a second. Long enough for me to see. There was no driver. Just a steering wheel turning by itself. I slammed the brakes hard. My ABS rattled violently. My truck fishtailed in the fog. The convoy did not slow. Instead, all three trucks' brake lights turned solid red. Not blinking. Not pulsing. Solid. The fog around them began darkening. Like ink spreading through water. The road under my wheels felt uneven. Wrong. Like gravel. But my GPS still insisted I was on Highway 287. Suddenly, my radio burst with overlapping voices. Different tones. Different ages. Men. Women. All whispering the same phrase. Stay in line. Stay in line. Stay in line. I covered my ears. The side truck jerked sharply toward me. Metal scraped metal. Sparks flashed. I screamed and swerved right. And my right tires left pavement. Hitting gravel for real this time. The fog broke instantly. Just vanished. Clear sky. Empty highway. No convoy. No scrape marks. No damage to my truck. I was parked half on the shoulder. Engine idling. Clock reading 1:36 a.m. The exact time I first saw the fog. Not a single minute had passed. I sat there shaking for 5 full minutes before pulling back onto the road. I drove straight to the next truck stop outside Cheyenne. When I stepped out to inspect my rig, there was something new. 4 long scratches running down the left side of my trailer. Perfectly parallel. Like something had tried to keep me aligned. I checked the rear doors. They were slightly open. Inside, the floor was coated in fine gray dust. And there were tire tracks in it. 3 sets. Matching the spacing of the convoy. I shut the doors immediately. Didn't tell dispatch. Didn't report damage. Just finished the haul and went home. But ever since that night, when fog rolls in heavy and fast, my CB radio sometimes clicks on. No static. Just that same mechanical voice. Calm. Patient. Join formation. And once, just once, in my side mirror, I saw 3 red taillights. Perfectly aligned. Waiting for me to fall in behind them. Tonight you heard 3 stories. But there are more highways. More mile markers. More voices on dead channels. Hit like and subscribe now, because next time we are covering the highway that doesn't exist on any map. And trust me, you don't want to drive that one alone.